This is Dr. Helen Sue from Hella Mental Health. We are so fortunate today that I managed to get a guest visit with my friend and colleague, Dr. LaWanda Hill, who's based in LA right now. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always an honor.
Yes, and so we just wanted to get a brief 3 minutes of her expertise, lived wisdom, and work about depression and high functioning people, especially high functioning Black women, which is LaWanda's expertise area. And I really want to hear that some folks have said it's really hard to believe that a smart, strong, successful, educated woman, a Black woman, can even get depression. And what do you say about that?
I think I say that it's so loaded. There's so many different layers to that reason. Let's first start with how people have been conditioned to perceive Black women. One as a strong Black woman, right? And so there is a lot of research out there, this called different things, but by and large, it's the strong Black woman schema. And so there is this perception of Black women that they have to be strong, and that they have to push through and they have to endure. And for a long time, that was the reality, right? Strength is something that's been passed down generationally through our ancestors and our elders because that's been functional to our survival. But in passing down that strength and passing it down, Black women internalize that schema, right? And so that schema has a few different things within it. One is self-silencing, right? Suffering in silence, invulnerability, and this hyper independence. So when you think about those three schemas, it basically is suggesting in layman's terms, take on everything, endure the stress, swallow the pain, swallow all of those things, which internally can create a level of depression and anxiety. But then on top of it, you're not a piece of why the depression can manifest from a biopsychosocial space is because now you're not getting any help, you're not getting any support, you feel isolated, you can get caught up in these intrusive and these negative thoughts, and then you are carrying this weight, and the body keeps the score. You cannot not process things that are going on. So because we have this script of the strong Black woman and the things that make up it and how we internalize that, it is the perfect storm and the perfect recipe for not only depression, but anxiety as well, chronic stress, burnout. The research is clear that the internalization of this schema specifically is correlated to depression, is correlated to anxiety, is correlated to high rates of burnout, and chronic stress. And so with Black women, because there are more stressors, there are more psychosocial stressors, there are more incidents of racial stress and minority stress and trauma. On top of internalizing this schema, right? You have all these risk factors and not enough protective factors, right? Because the onset of any mental health condition is a combination of our biology, how we're created, but also our social environment and also our social support, and just the ways in which we've been taught to cope. So you have all of these risk factors that are not enough to combat. We don't have enough protective factors. And so here, then you can see the onset of depression in high performing Black women specifically. Because the more they perform, the more they probably have endured, and the more
And the
they
more work gets loaded on them.
and right. So then there's more stress and anxiety. So it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, I hear you. And in all cycles of life, you pointed out, right? It's like personally as well as professionally. It reminds me too, for Asian Americans, it's like the model minority myth.
Yeah.
It
Yep.
becomes a
Yep.
schema, like you should just take it.
Yeah, it's just a different thing, but you hit the hammer, hammer on the head. Yeah, it is the model minority that Asian Americans have been wrestling with. It's the strong Black woman for us, and then on top of that, because we have these other schemas like or scripts, like the angry Black woman,
Mm.
they're trying not to confirm, right? You have stereotype threat, which basically means there's a stereotype out there about you. And so you're trying your best not to confirm it, even though there's so many reasons to react in that way. And so with the angry Black woman, it's this idea that Black women are angry and aggressive, all these buzzwords that are weaponized. And so even if you've experienced pain, you've experienced discrimination, you've experienced hurt, which usually comes out because Black women typically have an irritable depression. Okay, it's not always we can't afford to just be non-productive and non-functioning. So
Yeah.
manifest as an irritable depression. And so on top of that, you have this like, oh, I can't be this, I can't be that. It's just very boxy. You know what I mean? And anytime you're operating and where you can't be your authentic full self, you're going to experience some mental health symptoms.
Yeah, like the stereotypes silence a rightful healthy anger.
Right, yeah, right. And a anger that I feel is functional and that is deserved, but because of the ways in which we're dehumanized, you don't get an opportunity to express that.
Mm, absolutely. Do you have some tips on like how would a woman who functions exceptionally well even know that she's got depression, right? Like you said, her depression might not, for a Black woman, might not look the same as somebody else who can stay in bed all day.
Mhm.
Yeah, like what do you see among your clientele?
I see like a lack of fulfillment and a lack of enjoyment. So whereas you believe the more you achieve, the more you have, the more blessed you are, the greater joy you can have. That joy seems to be missing.
Mm,
That fulfillment is missing, which is what we know is kind of like this. It's like a dysphoria. It's like I'm sad, this inability to experience this joy and happiness despite the fact that I should, right?
mm,
Because now you get into serotonin and norepinephrine, and all these things aren't firing, despite the fact that we think that they should be, which are the chemicals, associated with us feeling good and having motivation. So to that point, there's also lower motivation, right? I think that sometimes a lot of my women specifically kind of fall behind in their task. And so they're not as productive. They're not as motivated, right? And so they have kind of fallen victim to being burned out, but feel
mm,
like they should keep going. So it's like, a lack of energy, lack of motivation. Their sleep is disrupted. I find that often as well. So it's either getting to sleep or staying to sleep or getting restful sleep. Low energy and fatigue is a symptom. Irritability, persistent irritability is a symptom. Not enjoying activities or things or people that you usually would and not experiencing that joy. Those are many of the symptoms that I find my Black women face. But they usually, I say depression is what we usually get to, but it usually starts with I'm tired.
mm,
Right. It usually is like I'm just tired, I'm fatigued, which is usually psychological burnout.
yep.
And then when I do a more thorough assessment, I realize, oh, they've been struggling with their mood. They've been struggling with experience all the things that I just named. They've been struggling with experiencing motivation. They've been struggling with their fatigue, their energy level. And then on top of that, it's like, and then there's this anxiousness, right? There's this persistent worry, feeling keyed up because anxiety and depression co-occur pretty commonly. I'm
Yeah.
not sure what the prevalence rate is, but it is not uncommon for you to experience symptoms of anxiety and depression at the same time. And so I feel like it's sometimes a cluster for at least the Black women that I serve. It may not be full blown anxiety disorder, right? Or full blown depressive disorder, but there are certainly symptoms of them both, or that as well as burnout at the same time.
Yeah. I like that, right? Like they may have attained all the things and things look really good, but
Mhm.
they've lost that joy and that motivation.
Yeah,
Their
yeah,
body and their body is telling them, which is not a bad thing when your body tells you, like,
yeah. Not it. The
that's the
body, I
moment.
tell them all the time, it's like the body keeps the score. That's usually what
Mhm.
I start with
Yeah.
because they've been so conditioned to override that,
Yeah.
right? They've been conditioned to override these internal mechanisms that we have that tell us that we're tired or that we're down or that something's off, but they've been taught to just push through, i.e., the strong Black woman schema. And so at some point, the body just flat out is like, no, we
Yeah.
good. Stop.
I see that a lot too with high functioning clients, and it makes me sad. They actually get mad at their bodies sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I
When it's
cannot.
like your body's trying to save you.
When you say that, it really makes me bring up. I'm working with a number of clients right now who are in the process of, understanding that it's not their body that they need to forgive, it's themselves, because their body is only trying to protect them, but their body has given out,
Mm,
in some shape, form, or fashion. And so, yeah, man, it's a lot. It's really like and it goes, if you think about this, right, like trace this back to enslavement. I know people probably feel like that's a far reach, but it's really not because our bodies and the way we've been conditioned is that our bodies are not divine. Our bodies are a tool of work and a tool of productivity, which benefits other people to
mhm.
get things done. And that has been for better or for worse, what we've internalized, as opposed to our body being human and needing rest and honoring that rest. We haven't always had the luxury of honoring that rest. And now that we're in a generation where we can, the conditioning suggests that we shouldn't. And so we're kind of having to unlearn that grind hustle culture.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Capitalism and exploitation is bad for your mental health.
It's very bad for your mental
Um,
health.
but we have a hard time feeling that we deserve care if we're not grinding.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And grind culture goes back to, as you say, capitalism. It goes back to you know, white supremacy values in the sense that we value money and capital and productivity over humans and their bodies. And we've internalized that. And
Mhm.
then it becomes something that we are having to unlearn.
Yeah. I mean, in a brief, uh, sort of a brief way of describing, because this could be a long conversation or a lecture series, but what are some of the tips or advice you give like high achieving Black women on how to pull in some of that mindfulness to actually take care of their wellness proactively?
Well, I always start with the basics, and it goes back to leaning into listening to your body. Like I tell them, your body tells you when you're sleepy, when you're hungry, when you're tired, when you're irritated. So
Mm.
let's slow down and begin to listen to the cues of our bodies. What is your body saying that you need? And then it's kind of coupled, it's not really a tip in this regard, it's a process of unlearning.
Mm.
So your body's telling you that you are tired. What's coming up for you that's making you dismiss that? Right? What's coming up for you that's making you want to override that or push through that? What feelings, right? Because oftentimes it'll be guilt. I've had a lot of people tell me I feel guilt, and I tell them guilt is not a indication that you're doing something wrong. Guilt is an indication that you've been conditioned to believe that there's something that you're supposed to be doing. And in that, we can unpack that, we can unlearn that, we can kind of dig down to the nitty-gritty of what scripts are coming up. So part of it is starting with listening to your body, plain and simple, right? Then it's a assessment of what you're doing. Every Black woman that comes to me with any symptoms of burnout or depression or anxiety, we're going to do what I call an assessment of how much of your output. What are you doing and what can we take off your plate? No ifs, ands, and buts about it. And there's gonna be some resistance. Oh, I can't do, we can. Let's see what we can do to get off your plate, because a lot of times what we're trying to do is alleviate the burnout. And to cool off the burn, you have to reduce the stress load and you have to reduce what you're doing. So it's really, to me, it started with listening to your body, being mindful, then paying attention to your scripts, then taking off some of the stress. And that's just to get us out of crisis.
Mm-hmm.
That's not even to get us functioning, right? I'm just trying to get us out of crisis so that we can get to homeostasis, which is kind of like a level set. Then we can work on the underlying things that's contributing to the depression or the anxiety or the burnout.
Yeah. The real achievement is health, right? More than anything.
Yeah.
And I like your point about thinking about boundaries, delegating, just taking things off the
Yeah.
plate. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. You're thinking now about what boundaries do you need to implement
Mm,
emotionally, physically, with your time, with what you're putting out, and then how can you delegate? And for some people, that's a skill to learn. For a lot of people, it's a skill to cultivate that hasn't been always taught. Like boundaries, we don't understand that. We're not
yeah.
taught.
If anything, right? I think a lot of women, especially minoritized women, big sisters and families, are just trained to just take it on, take it on, take it on, take care of everybody but yourself.
By any means, that's that
Mhm.
self-sacrifice,
Yeah.
right? I'm supposed
Mhm.
to sacrifice myself at the expense of others, and that's what makes me a strong Black woman, and that's what makes me honorable,
Yeah.
right? And so when you really have bought into that script, this idea of self-sacrifice feels like what you're supposed to do. So boundaries feel selfish.
Hmm. When in fact, you being human sacrifice is not the way to help your family or your community.
I'm just like, and then I'll be telling them, you can't, that's not divine. How is that? Even when
Mm,
you're on the flight attendant tells you to put your mask on first. How are you going to save other people or help other people? And I get it, we're a very communal collectivist culture. So I get that we are thinking about others and trying to care for others, but it can't be at the expense of ourselves.
absolutely. It takes a long time to learn that, unfortunately. Like you
Yeah,
said, to deprogram ourselves.
yeah.
Um, Well, I'm super excited to have had you today. And before I let you go, wanted you to have a chance to shout out that you're planning again an annual Power Summit for Black women
Yes,
leaders.
yes, for this very reason. So we have a annual summit for Black women leaders, and it is a what I call a professional girls getaway,
Mm,
where we center Black women leaders' mental health and well-being. We have 2.5 days. We believe that to thrive, you have to focus on your whole self, and so that we have 6 domains of wellness that we're focusing on,
mm,
and emotional wellness, it's spiritual wellness, professional wellness, it is relational wellness, physical wellness, and sexual wellness. And so we take a really, really deep dive into all those domains. We have amazing guests who are innovative, who are trailblazers, who are killing it in their in their industries, who are going to share their stories, their tips, their tools,
mm,
their experiences with achieving wellness in these domains. So this is not a space where you're coming to learn how to keep grinding and keep hustling. You know what I'm saying? It's a space where you
mm.
come to regroup and recuperate and to recenter yourself and get realigned, because it's when we attend to our truest selves, can we truly be well.
Yeah, I love that. What is the bio, psycho, spiritual, sexual,
Hey,
all the
all the
ways you can be a
things.
whole person?
Yes, you get to be a whole person here. And so it's taking place May 29th through 31st at the Omni downtown Los Angeles. We are
Mhm.
running a special right now, so make sure you take advantage of it. Tickets are buy one, get one 30% off. So that means you need to bring your professional work bestie or your bestie in real life or your
Mhm.
friend, or, we've had mother-daughter duos to come
Oh,
to because
wow.
they
Mhm.
need to unlearn together. So I would say definitely take advantage of the promo we have going on. It's going to be a phenomenal time.
Mm. It sounds amazing. Thank you so much. I love the theme, 360 degrees level up.
You go. Yes, yes, yes.
We need that. I think so many of us who are high functioning are amazing, but are really lopsided.
Yeah, yeah. And we want to be really balanced and well-rounded. And that's the point of this summit. And so I guarantee a transformation or money back. That's how confident I am in this
Wow,
space.
that is incredible. We needed this for a long time and in a lot of spaces.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So again, thank you so much. This is Dr. LaWanda Hill. This is Dr. Helen Sue from Hella Mental Health. Have you experienced this with high functioning depression? You can drop your comments and please subscribe and follow for more information about mental health, especially for BIPOC folks.